So we'll do this real quick. Not sure what that was. Hello everybody, welcome back to Redbeard Rebuilding. In this video I'm going to attempt to show you how I wrap a javelin for the cord. The video is going to be a little screwy, I think. I'm not much of a videographer. All I have is a cell phone. I have a tablet, but it's a few years old and the camera is rather outdated. So I'm not going to try to use that. So it's going to be a little bit of you looking at me trying to turn it around. I don't know how all that works. So we're going to do our best with this video. And just bear with me. I'll try to make it as smooth as humanly possible. Supplies. What I have is the cord. I get mine from a company in Japan. Luckily, I got this before COVID. But anyway, I got mine from I think it's Japan or China. One problem with buying cord in the United States is we don't use the metric system. But we are an international sport, and everybody else uses the metric system but us. So I got mine out of country. I'm pretty sure OTE does the same thing. OTE and Gill, excuse me. They're the big company here in the United States. I know Spearworks up there, northern PA. I'm not positive where he gets his from. I know I've been in talks with him, and he's really looking around to find his. But the cord I use is 4 millimeters. That's pretty much the max that you're allowed. I personally like the 4 millimeter 4-ply cord, so that's what mine is. I think you can get some through MF Athletics. I'd have to double check on that. At one time, I know Gill and or OTE sold it in little spools, so you might be able to get it through them. I might do a little mini video in there, try to help you where to get it here in the United States. But going from there, I use just plain old white Elmer's glue. Now, I also need athletic tape. If I don't, for my javelins, because I put a clear coat on everything, if I don't use this tape underneath it, it just comes right off. I found that out the hard way the first time, and it's just best go with this. I believe Nordic does the same general idea. I'm not sure if anybody else does, but that's what we'll go with right now. So obviously need that. If you're not very good at tearing that, get yourself a pair of scissors or pocket knife, however it works for you. And right now I'm going to show you the video of how to do it on a brand spanking new painted javelin. Basically, this is one that I rebuilt. It's a scrap one, but I rebuilt it and it has new paint on it. I have a balancer. Let's see if we can do this sitting in front of me. Welcome to my sloppy basement. But I have a balancer here in front of me. I have already gone through and used my leveler, and I made sure that this whole table here is level. I know it's level going to and from, and I can't really show you that because there's a big shelving unit on my table, so we can't show you that one. But trust me, I have gone through and done it as I do every time before I balance a javelin. Alright guys, so the first thing you really have to make sure you have set up. Excuse me, I burped. I have a balancer here. I honestly don't remember where I bought it from. The first one I made myself out of a piece of steel, some little tabs, my welder, some screws. But it worked out for what I needed it for until I wanted to become a little more professional. This one I can take to places and seem a little more professional, and can show it off a little better. So what you can see here is that I already have my balancer on it. balancing the balancer. You want to you want to make sure that everything is straight and level. Otherwise, your readings won't be right, and you could possibly make a illegally balanced javelin. You can kind of see the little bubble in there. I already have everything balanced and ready to go. Put that off to the side. Now the javelin I have is a 600-gram javelin. It was actually a messed up paint job that I did, but it'll work out for the video we're trying to make here. Now here's going to be the difficult part, trying to get you guys to see what I'm doing, what I'm trying to show you. As you can tell here, there are two different marks on here. One is for 800, one is for 600. This one here that we're going to be using is for the 600-gram javelin. Then if we spin you right side up, take you along here, it marks left and right for the 600 and 800 gram, even though you can't see it under my duct tape. And then everything ends up being balanced to that point. Now what I'm going to do is place this at a mark that I already have on the javelin, so that way I have a general idea. Now what you can tell here is that tip, there's a good bit of space in here, which is no big deal. That's mostly done by the factory rather than myself. We could add lead in there to make the balance different if you really wanted to, but this is pretty close to the weight that it needs to be, so we're not going to bother with that. Now back here, as you obviously can't see, I have the javelin resting on that 600-gram point. And what I like to do, I know it's going to be very small movements, but you can kind of see how that tip is getting a little lighter. If I move it too far back, it just lifts straight up in the air. Obviously we don't want that, but we don't want it to be all the way up here where it just falls. You want that to happen when you're already wrapped. So what you try to do, obviously I'm not sure how well you can see that, but I am moving the javelin a little bit back each time, little by little, trying to find that floating point. I might find it here. Yeah, not quite. Right about there. As you can tell, that javelin barely lifts up. If I hold it down here, so it's kind of floating off the bottom there. If I move it up here, it very lightly lifts up. That's where I like to start at. Again, excuse me for the hydration. So now what we'll do is get your athletic tape. You need a new roll, but you take off yourself a good long piece and you can set it aside. You won't need it again. What I do, I take off another little strip of this. You can just attach it to your table, and then again another little piece. See which end I have. I always take one end and I fray it out a little bit like so, and tape it like so. One here, right about there. You can see I have a mark that rotates the whole way around, so I know where it's at. I take that tape and I put the tape right underneath where my mark is. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you that very well. We can try, see if I can move. There you go. You can see how my tape is right there below it. And now, what you do is you start wrapping yourself around, just like so. Try to keep myself in the view. And you keep on wrapping around until you get all that cord on there. This will take a minute. As you can tell right now, there is no glue, there is no tape. There isn't anything on here right now. This is just so you know where your lines are, if you balance out decently, and how much cord you need. Like I said, this is going to be on a brand new, freshly painted Javelin. This is not on a used Javelin. So you can't really judge how much cord you need until you get it on the Javelin. Now, what I already have these pre-made for myself. This one is a lady's because it's red. My guy's is blue. But there's two different sides to it. You can kind of tell. And they are the max and the minimum of how big it can be. I think I went over that at the moment. We can show you here. Now, as you can tell, I obviously went over that mark. Let's see if we can get you a little closer here. You have to find the farthest point down, as I don't flick off the camera. Find the farthest point down. As you can tell, I'm very overboard. And you always want to do that before you cut your string. Never cut your string before you actually get everything wrapped around. So I know we can backtrack ourselves here. See how much we have now. Obviously, I have about 2, maybe 3 cord lengths around the Javelin too far. That's a decent cushion if you want. That's probably the cushion I would give myself for a beginner. So obviously that is the shortest that you can be, and I try never to make anything judged off of that at all. I always try to make as far or use the max amount of cord that I can. I'm going to take mine back a little. Here's my start of my cord. Again, you always measure it by the farthest point down, which is that one, and then you go up. That shows there that I have about one wrap around. So I'm going to mark myself off right there. You guys don't need to see me cutting it. You can understand what I'm doing. And I always just cut yourself off there. And what you can do, I just have this sticking to my table here. I always have some extra tape floating around. That, as it starts to fray, it'll keep on going and going. So what you can do is take a piece of masking tape, or you can use your athletic tape that you tore off there, and just wrap it around it. This will make your life easier down the road. So that's what I have there. That is my legal mark. You can tell that everything sits in there. That didn't work. We start up there. It sits where it fits, it ships. So everything sits right there. Excuse me for the itch. And then again, what you can do, take a little piece of tape and mark where that is. So that actually shows you how much extra string that it kind of left there. I don't like it to be that far back as your balance point, which is here. This balance point is probably more closer to this third line. So I'll show you down here. It is pretty well set up. If I move it back one cord, it lifts, and it lifts pretty well. So there's kind of that in-between spot that's kind of hard to find. What I have here is a standard shipping scale, and can't see out of the glare there, but obviously it needs zeroed out. So what we'll do, we'll zero everything out. Everything is on, nope, that's on ounces. That is on grams, because everything is measured in grams here. I have it set up right in front of me. Right now, this Javelin is actually light by a few grams. I have a collection of little bits and pieces that I've taken off of Javelins before. That one's not heavy enough. What's this one? That one's a little heavier than I want it to be. So, like I said, I have a collection of pieces. Just dump them all out here on the table. And you just kind of search around till you find all the lead that you need. That's still at 96, 99. And so, obviously 600 grams has to be 600 grams. I always try to make it a little bit overboard, not too much, because we still have to add the glue and your athletic tape to it. So, there you go. That's probably where I would put it, because I still have other stuff to add. Alright guys, so we're back at it here. Where I left you off was having the scale and the lead, and we got everything to weigh 600 grams. So now what you're going to do is unravel yourself back down to the very beginning of your cord, right about there. That's what I'm seeing. Obviously you guys aren't going to look at it too. Now what I've already done is I have a strip of athletic tape that I was going to put underneath the cord anyway. And what I do is kind of set it up like that. Take your other piece, or however many pieces you need to make weight, and that's just an easy way to do it. And then what I'll do is I find that spot, that middle spot right there where the tape is not, and I'll place it just a little high, like so. Whoops, it came off. Stick there. And then what you do is just kind of wrap it around like so. You want to make that as tight as you can get it, even if you have to come back through and kind of just make sure it's as flat as can be. And what you're going to do is just repeat the process and rewrap everything around it. Now this is also where it's good to leave a little bit of that extra cord at the end, because you're basically adding thickness in here, so it's going to take up a little bit more cord. You know, it's not a lot, but it will be enough to make a difference if you cut yourself too short. And if you give me a minute to wrap everything around. It's never good when you get an itch on your nose and you're trying to do this. But you're not supposed to touch your face because of COVID. I don't know. So now I know we're getting close. Grab your gauge. Figure out where you are. Now, you can tell right now, I'm a half a cord piece too long. Like I said, you always want to start here, where your mark is, where you tucked everything under, and make sure you're up. So I know I have enough there. Take your other piece of tape, put it right there, piece of sandpaper, and then what you do is you put it back on here, on your balancer. And it's still on that fourth mark, but kind of at a happy spot right there. Yeah, I can't do any better than that if I tried. And that's just sitting right there without even me touching it. And it is currently on the fourth wrap. So I'm not going to change it. It's going to be a little different than that once we put everything on it. I still have to cut this part off, and we still have to put some glue on there. So face me again. Now, here's where we're at. What I like to do is I'll take this mark where I'm at right now, and I'll use the masking tape here so it's a different color and you can see it. I mark right where that cord is. Now what we're about to do is change directions of the cord. Because if we were to do it right now, we would be taking this end, do it, try to make it face you guys. We would be taking this end, tucking it underneath this cord, and it would face here. Now some judges can be a little picky about it when they go through and balance, and they'll say that this is too high and become annoying. So what I do is I'll switch everything around so that way that end is now in the front where your hand's not going to be anyway, because it's a little weird to throw a javelin that way. So the higher end will be down here. The judges tend not to be so picky if they want to be. So like I said, we marked that side with a piece of tape. And I'll just use this piece of tape here that I have handy. And you end up marking both ends, so that way you have a general good idea of where you want it to be. And you guys don't need to see me unravel this, but I want to unravel that real quick. Another thing you can also look at is, obviously this is beginning and end point, and my athletic tape only goes to here. I want to throw in another little piece there, just so that way you have it. I'd always like to make sure that it's going to stick. Better safe than sorry, I guess, is the best term. So we just put a little piece in there. If I can grab a hold of the other end, tear it off, and away you go. All with little extra strings. Whoopsies. Pardon me. Stay. Don't move. Anyway, open you up like that. And there you go. Sorry about that. So, like I said, I put it white on white, so you're not going to see it very well. But this is where the end of the tape is, and right there is your green mark. So, what we then do is we pop this off down here. So, extra piece of tape. See, the only problem about athletic tape, you always have little strings. So now we're just going to reverse our process. Right there is my green piece, and I'll do it like I did at the other end, where this piece of tape goes right at the bottom of that green piece. If I keep it sticking. Keep it sticking. Right there at the bottom. And then we always end up rewrapping it, just to double check. Always double and triple check yourself before you then go and glue it, because once the glue's there, you're out of luck and you're going to need to cut a new piece of string. Too long, but that's okay. So now what you see here is this is my mark where the cord goes underneath, and then right here where my finger is where it's going to end up coming up. So that's where I always check. That's my minimum, that's my max. And you see there, give or take a cord and a half to 2 cords wrapped around there, which is going to be a little too far. So unravel a little. Right there will be my mark. I always try to line them up straight on, because that is the easiest way to use your gauge on it. So we then do that. I'll put it down here, double check where we are. And that is a good happy point. The happy point is still right at the fourth chord wrap, excuse me. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is then take everything apart. Now I always like to have a piece down here, so that way I know I'm not going too far, but it also gives me a little extra room. Well, like I said, I just use regular Elmer's glue, which sometimes separates. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get my camera to see what I want it to see. Problem is they don't make a kickstand on this side, they make a kickstand for the other side. So gonna have to show you. What I did was I pulled those cords up, open up my glue, as you can see, I just put a dab of glue, or a couple dabs of glue in there. I always open up those cords a little bit, spread them out, so that way it doesn't leave one big hump right there. And also gets the glue underneath them, gives a good stick. And what I'll show you here is what I do after that. I always just, that spot, I always specifically put extra glue on. That way it keeps everything nice and tight. And that's also where your hand is, so that takes the most beating. So we'll try to do this and show you guys what we do. Take the cord out of your way. Oh, that was a good thunder. Sorry, thunderstorms. Possible tornadoes. You know, we might get sucked up while we do this. So what I'll do, you don't need to overkill the glue, but you want to make sure you have enough. The good thing about Elmer's glue is you can always wipe it off. So as you can see there's where my my stopping point was. I always make sure to go extra a little bit, and then right there, you always make sure you go high enough. I'm gonna try and make sure we get everything in the video. Now you just wrap it, but you want to be as specific as you can to keep those wraps as tight as you can, both against each other and around it, because if you make it loose, then things break loose real easy. So I'm keeping a good tight grip on the cord as I go around. I'm using this finger to, keep a good grip on it. I have a good hand over here. And this is where it takes some time. And you just make sure everything is good and tight right up against the other pieces of cord, because like I said, if it's loose and you have those gaps, everything just kind of comes apart a lot easier. So we're just going to speed life up here since you have the idea. Now the bad thing is you can't really control the design so much. I wish I could. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. This one looks like it's staying general. And once you start getting close, obviously there's my piece of tape. Start getting close down here. My nose is itchy. Somebody's thinking about me. I think that's what that's saying is. Now, I found my start point, and I'm right about down there to the tape. See if we can make sure I'm in frame. Now, this side over here, if I can see my fingers, this side over here is my longest point. That's the one I always judge by. You can see I am right there. Now what I do is I always take, you can do 1 or 2 extra loops around. I'm back to my start point. Always base yourself off of there. And now if you watched my previous video, you will know about this job. This is my flexible needle. I'll grab hold of it for you. My flexible needle. Try and get this as best as I can for you guys so you can see what we're doing. You feed that line and you take it right up against everything. Now what you have to do here is you have to let a little bit of slack. I only go down about three cords or 3 wraps. You don't need to go any farther than that. Now you can see what happened here. It started to loop up. Always make sure it stays down here as tight as you can. If I can try. You can see what I'm doing here, I think. If I can see what I'm doing. And you're feeding this cord up underneath. You can see I'm underneath a couple wraps there. I think I have a little extra cord, so I'm going to go underneath an extra one up front. Like I said, always make sure this thing stays down here. And you pull it up underneath. You can tell. Sorry if this isn't the best angle for it. We're probably going to do another one here. But I'm underneath there. And it kind of takes a little bit of extra strength to work it in through. Kind of hard to show you guys and do this at the same time. Now, I come up in, and your needle is free. And that's what it ends up looking like. So what you do is you push everything back up against, and turn, and make it tight. You don't want to see any of the color underneath what you're working on. You find starting point and ending point. Take your scale or your gauge. Right now, if I can show you, I have a lot of extra. Sorry for the noises again. What you do is you kind of loosen it up here at the end, and you pull till you get back to your start point. All I did was pull the cord out from underneath it, and it's still keeping it nice and tight in there. Find starting point, ending point. You want to check it, best to describe it, you want to check your distances both on this side. See if I can focus. I want to be on both sides of the starting point. So this is thicker, this is thinner, but then when you get back down here, it's reversed. This part's thicker, this part's thinner. So you always check it on both sides, and you want it to have just a little bit of wiggle room. Because then if you switch it around, you're looking like that on your minimum. So you know you surpassed that, and you know you surpassed that. So what you can do is then take off your extra tape. Make sure it's out of the way. Now you have this long bit. What I will do is I will just pull it out just a little bit like that. You can either take your scissors, take your pocket knife. Knives tend to, burp, is a little better to get into here. All you're going to do is cut that little piece right in the middle. Takes out. So now you look like that. What I'll always do is after that, take your glue. I'll just do it here and then I'll show you. I always put a dab of glue right in there. And then push everything together. Same thing with the very last wrap. I'll pull it down. Take your glue, put a couple dabs right in there. Push it back up. Just like that. And you can see how the little glue comes out. You smear it in a little bit, won't hurt anybody. Now, I always come back up to the top as well and do the exact same thing. The extra glue will help the two pieces of, well, not two pieces, the two wraps of cord stay together. And you just push it again back together like so. And then you just kind of wipe it off. Nice thing about Elmer's glue is it's water soluble. Then what I always do is I double check myself all over again. I know this thing is about the third or fourth wrap. It bounces out well. The other thing about the Elmer's glue, you can always just work it off your fingers. You end up with a little snow on the floor on your table, but it works out. That was a bad noise that probably didn't go well for you either. As you can see, if it'll focus, it is still on the fourth wrap, but when you come down here, it is pretty well settled. I'll open my drawer out and set you guys up how I had you before. See if I can show you. So that's where we're set out now. It doesn't really bounce. It just stays put. If I move it back one wrap, it still likes to bounce up. So if we try and spin it around a little bit, back down, still likes to do that. So somewhere in between the third and fourth wrap is its happy spot. So, which isn't a horrible place to be. I try to make it more between the second and third if I can. But with this Javelin, it's not too particular because we're doing a video. You guys saw that I had everything scaled out to 600 grams, pretty much on the dot when I put everything together. Now, with the glue and the tape and taking off the extra cord, it is now at 601. So maybe an extra gram after that would make, make it exactly 600, but for wear and tear purposes, I wouldn't try to make it exactly 600, just so that way you have, like I said, wear and tear. But, so, now you guys know how I wrap a Javelin. If I have time today, I don't know what time it is currently, I'm going to try and make a video on how to do a Javelin when you can still see, when it's not redone. So you can see where it used to sit. It's a little more difficult. There's always that chance that it's not going to balance out if you don't have a balancer handy. The Javelin I have sitting over here doesn't have a head on it, but so I won't be able to actually balance it out. So we'll see how that video turns out. But for now, stay safe, throw far.